Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead of you. Today, I shall have for you my Gameweek 31 transfer plans, which also include a review of my Gameweek 30 wildcard, which you can see in the top right corner of your screen. Has gone quite well, and for the first time in a very long time, I've got a good, healthy sized green arrow. Not only will you have that today, but you shall also have around 6:30 to 7 p.m.-ish GMT, everything you need to know, given the turnaround is so tight to the next game week. And then we shall resume to a normal schedule as the Premier League does as well. So I very much look forward to hopping into that. Like the video if you enjoy, subscribe if you have not already, and let's get into it. Naturally, we shall start in net with David Raya, who recorded a 2-pointer. Now, at about 9:35-ish p.m., if you scrolled on the X timeline or just went through one of your WhatsApp chats, you probably would have seen a lot of angry messages. People were quite frustrated that they lost their Raya clean sheet in about the 93rd minute, courtesy of a deflected strike from Muniz via Saliba. To be honest, whilst Arsenal controlled the game, I would say, Muniz did have that really big chance around the 80th minute, which he should have scored, so I guess it's kind of made up for it. The other thing is they lost Gabriel so early on, which of course we will talk about, and them keeping a clean sheet without him for the rest of the game, I thought was quite impressive because, with all due respect, Kiwior, Gabriel to Kiwior is quite a big downgrade. This can happen with keepers like Raya. This is what happens when you buy keepers from premium teams. They can concede these 1 goals and they won't really have the saves to go alongside it to kind of offset that clean sheet loss. And it just is what it is. We'll talk about whether he even starts for myself in Gameweek 31 in everything you need to know, or team selection / solving your problems. Because currently I have got Areola starting, but that is for then. Not too much to speak about here regarding the Arsenal defense. I guess we could go into some match analysis, but the reason I've held back on that is there was a lot of repetition, game on game on game. There is actually some Arsenal analysis which we can get into, and I'll discuss that maybe when I assess Raya versus Areola. But for now, that is the review of him. As always, goalkeeper, not too interesting, unless it was when Self Supremacy was going for myself at least, and Pickford was returning some points. And if you are enjoying Self Supremacy still, then congratulations to you. The man keeps racking up those points. I've noticed I am a little bit quieter, and that is because I'm recording at 1:45, and I don't wish to wake anyone else up. Moving on to the defense, and there's a lot more to speak about here. I will speak about pretty much the only success, well, at least in the starting lineup, and that is Josko Gvardiol. Leicester had practically nothing, and I mean quite literally nothing, apart from like 1/2 chance in the 88th, 89th minute. There was nothing going for them, and it is probably the easiest clean sheet you will get maybe all season. Funnily enough, I had Gvardiol for the reverse fixture, and I remember tweeting out it was probably one of the luckiest or the hardest clean sheets that I had got all season because of the amount of chances Leicester made and the amount of big chances they missed. But this was the complete opposite. I mean, they can completely control the game every time they lost the ball. Similar to how I've seen Liverpool do it at times, particularly against Ipswich, instantly pounce and get it back and then circulate again. The other thing with Leicester is they lack so much transitional threat, lacked any wide threat, like at all. When you don't have that at the Etihad, game over, because you're not going to dominate possession. So you can't really bring the likes of El Kanous into the game like that. You really do need some wide threat, transitional threat, pacing behind. And they just didn't have that. And it would have been a good game, right, to test out Nico O'Reilly and Matthias Nunes on those flanks and see how they deal with that, like their positional awareness, maybe even their 1v1 ability from a defensive standpoint. But yeah, without the weapons, it's pretty difficult. And Gabriel, we'll come on to later, in transfer plans, he will be one of the big talking points, and how his injury not only affects the plan in terms of like where you're going to use the transfer, but maybe the entire strategy. But it might open something up, which we shall discuss there. Obviously, very unfortunate for him, and it looks like he'll be out for at least a month, but who knows, maybe a season ender. I imagine if they get through Real Madrid in the Champions League, he'll have one eye on potentially being there for the final, and they'll do everything they can to get him for that. Whether he's back earlier, I'm not so sure. And then Daniel Munoz, as in, like, I guess this was the fixture we were looking at. Was like, yeah, this potential 15-pointer. But to be fair to Southampton, it was a good goal. And one thing I've said with Southampton is they do have some quality, right? And especially in the way that they play, it's a bit more attacking than you would kind of associate a newly promoted side with a newly promoted side. This can happen. No attacking returns, and not too many chances for him either to get one. There was one shot where Mateta pivoted, smashed it low, and Ramsdale made a really good save. On another day, that kind of just falls to Munoz, who was following up. But it wasn't to be. And considering it was a fairly high effective ownership, not the end of the world. Dan Burn and Ezri Konsa we shall speak about in the midfield section for a particular reason. We shall start with someone who has blanked for me many times this season, but has also catapulted me up the ranks at times this season, quite a few times, and that is Phil Foden. Naturally, I wasn't best pleased that he wasn't starting, but him not coming on the pitch was a big win because it meant that I got Ezri Konsa's 6-pointer off the bench. And the reason I love this so much is because I actually did quite a bit of vanilla analysis. It was probably the team I've analyzed most going into this wildcard in terms of like what I went and watched. But not only that, like I actually consciously made the switch from Burn to Konsa when I was making the team and setting it. Burn was initially ahead of him, and I was like, no, you know what? I think Villa are in very good form. I think the defense has really improved. I think Emery's coaching is of such a high standard because he's made like small adjustments. For example, like you see Rodgers' role on the right-hand side, right? It's slightly different to what we've seen from when Rodgers has operated in this right-hand side role previously, right? So I was like, okay, I'm going to make a switch, and very happy with those 6 points, as you can probably tell. Continuing the theme with Aston Villa, and then we'll circle back to Foden. Rodgers pops up with an 11-pointer, and he's been one of my players of the season. He might even be my player of the season. That haul against Manchester City, where most people benched him, and that haul again today. I mean, I just went for him primarily for the expected minutes, primarily, and because he's cheaper, and he rewards that, right? So, yeah, delighted with that. One thing, I'll touch on it quickly. The reason I had more confidence to go here, where, for example, in my drafts, you would have seen Rashford or Asensio, was because against Preston, I noticed that even though he was starting on the right-hand side, the 10 would drop a lot deeper than maybe traditional for the Villa 10 to do early in the season. At times, I guess you were saying they were playing like a 4-2-2, and the 10 would join Watkins or Duran up top. But they were dropping, and Rodgers, rather than holding so much width, would kind of come inside and penetrate the half spaces, and then even run on past the last line. And I was like, okay, you know what? It's probably not going to happen at the same frequency against the better sides, with all due respect to Preston. But like, this is an adjustment, right? Especially with Cash. Like, Cash is someone at right back who can actually hold your width by bombing up and down. I was like, yeah, with him fit, this makes a lot more sense. So I'm delighted that came off. Going back to Foden, I mean, honestly, it's kind of a good thing that he didn't start, not just in terms of points, but at least like you kind of know he's going to start against Man United in the middle, or at least probably, right? And I speak about him and transfer ban, so we'll get there. Salah, naturally, given I didn't captain him, quiet game for him, very quiet game for him. Very happy that he blanked, and yeah, credits to Everton because they certainly made the game quite difficult. David Moyes has done a really good job there, and Ismail Assar could have had an assist should Eze have found the net in the second half. Overall, I thought like positioning from the little I've seen, this is the very little I've seen, highlights wise, positions that you're picking up still pretty good. One of the better weapons you can have, like in the league, to be honest, against this particular Brighton side, which we'll talk about and everything you need to know. So yeah, just very happy to own him at the moment, and if he blanks, then so be it. And now we move on to the forwards. We will go from left to right with the forwards. Mateta, on another day, has a brace, smashes the bar a couple inches below, clips the bottom of the bar and will go in. Really good strike. And what I really liked about that, more than anything, is to start that move, for like his particular part of the sequence, he had a very physical duel with the defender, and he looked confident in it. And I was really happy with that, just because obviously he's just had his injury, very serious one which can certainly impact like your confidence. Even subconsciously, the body can react in a different way. The fact that he was willing to duel in that manner, like I was really happy to see that. And in terms of his prospects going forward, that pretty much solidified for me that I made the right choice in getting him. And then he had another one in the first half, which Ramsdale saved really well. Obviously, he gets hooked, but that's just him building up match fitness. Actually, pretty happy with that because I would rather him like have good minutes against Brighton as well, and then continue to go from there. Because obviously, aside from the FA Cup, they don't have a midweek game. So yeah, on another day, brace, but all good. On another day, staying until 16, you get an extra point. Isak really should have had a goal/assist in the first half. Probably should have squared to Barnes, but if not, probably should have finished. But got really lucky, I thought, for the goal. Yeah, he's in the right place at the right time. It's a beautiful ball by Murphy, but Mbeumo slips. And not only does he slip, that like Isak's finish was going straight to Flecken, but it clips Mbeumo's heel and goes to Flecken's left, right? So I guess when it's going your way, it's going your way. And as I said, in solving your problems, best striker in the league this season. So yeah, when you're the best striker in the league this season and you're in form, it's not going to be as hard for you to score as it is for others. And then Omar Marmoush, second high scorer in my team, and the Egyptian outscored Salah, and I finally beat him. It feels like a long time since I've done that. On another day, mega haul. Chances in the first half. I wouldn't say nearly as many chances in the second half, but positionally took up good positions, and maybe if City's combinations were slightly better. One thing I noticed today, especially in the second half when they were trying to break down that block, was that they would move with the ball a lot, right? And Guardiola's like pretty anti this. I think he's become a little bit more, he's given this a little more leeway in his sides as like football has changed recently. Like you can dribble and you can have these slightly more individualistic plays against these type of blocks, right? Because they're so well structured, and pass isn't always going to do it. But the fact that they didn't move the ball quick enough for my liking just meant that the Leicester block, who weren't particularly aggressive at all, could kind of just sit there and then jump when they need to. And it was hard for City to create, whilst they would be able to maintain like a huge sense of dominance and control. Ideally, they move the ball quicker. They hold it a little bit less. They take a few more risks. There's a little bit more attacking intent. And I feel like that's not just lacking with them, but pretty much around the world. This is something we can discuss maybe in like a footballing video, but I think from a theoretical standpoint, there needs to be more intent in the attacks. And I thought City lacked that at times. And as such, Marmoush didn't get as much in the second half. The thing with that is, like, even though United like will probably do like their 5-4-1 blueprint when they're defending deep, I think given it's a derby, given they're away, and given they have to win that game because like Villa are hot in their heels. Let's just say Chelsea win today, Newcastle keep going. All of a sudden, they could find themselves sixth, and that's not what they want to be. So I think they'll move it a little bit quicker against that United block, just because there'll be more emphasis on winning than there probably was today after they went like 2-0 up. And yeah, like pretty easy goal for him, right? It was kind of gifted it. Could have had a penalty as well for the Doku one in the first half. I feel like if he goes down from James Justin's challenge initially and makes a bit of a deal out of it, he gets it. But yeah, on another day, much bigger haul. You can probably tell by his XGI, whatever it is. I think it's like 1.58. He was involved a lot, as was Savio. I think owners were really unfortunate not to get more. But I guess when you get like a 9-pointer from solely an assist, not the worst thing as well. One thing you will notice about this team is that there's AG sitting in that first bench spot, and I can't wait to unleash him in 31 and to have him for 32. He isn't discussing these transfer plans because I've got him, but if you don't, I would really consider. I really would consider, because I've got a good feeling about that one. That's hence why I made sacrifices for him. In terms of the game week, like really cool. So essentially, like chop off over roughly a third of the rank. Considering there's no triple captain used and the squad's in a healthy state, very healthy position to kick on for the rest of the season and do some good things. So yeah, very happy with the game week, especially given the nature of it. Lastly, if you had a bad one, which I know that some people did, as opposed to giving you the traditional, positive, inspirational rah-rah, which I'm sure you've heard many times and in many cases is, I think, suitable and good advice, it's okay to feel bad. I actually think like when you feel bad and you allow yourself to do so, the energy and the feeling will leave you slightly quicker than usual. So yeah, just something to note regarding that, because I've noticed that like people will have some bad game weeks and then people will be like, and including myself, I've definitely said this at times, oh, don't worry about it, like things will work out, etc., etc. But just know that in general, I think it's completely okay to feel bad if you are feeling so in the moment, and that acknowledgement, that awareness, and that comfort with the feeling will help it to leave sooner rather than later. Following that game week, there are 2 players in my team to monitor and potentially move out, and we'll discuss what I'm going to do. Gabriel and Phil Foden. Now, Gabriel, as I expressed in his and the defender section, minimum a month, probably longer. And Foden. If I actually had to sell one of these two, I would sell Foden, because I'm not sure that I'm going to be repaid in terms of output against Man United. Like, I think I'm gambling a little bit whether he does something. Palace in 32, I'm not like 100% sure if he starts, because I've noticed that like in these types of games, he's actually more prone to dropping Foden because he wants something a little bit different in the middle. And then in 33, let's say he starts one and bench for the other. Well, all of a sudden, like I don't really want that, right? Villa's quite a good game for him stylistically, but one, I don't know if he plays that, and two, like they're in form, so even if it is and he's not, then all of a sudden, so I don't mind actually hopping off early. And like, let's say you were like super bullish on Anthony Gordon, you were like, you know what, I'm biting the bullet, I'm doing it. I don't mind it too much. For myself, at the moment, I'll almost definitely be rolling this game week, and I might even put Foden on the bench as well. At the moment, like he is there, subject to change, right? Like, for example, what's the fitness level of Rodgers like after playing 90 minutes and coming off with like a precautionary injury or because he's tired? What about Sarr? He just played 90, played pretty much 90 in the cup as well on the weekend, right? That's a lot. And coming off a loss, like maybe morale a little bit down, albeit it's a derby coming up, so I'm sure they'll be riled up for that, etc., etc., right? You get the point. So that's something to monitor, albeit in many cases, I think this is more of a role, and it will be a role for myself. However, there aren't too many opportunities next week, aside from Anthony Gordon. I think if you wanted to go there, this is something I could get on board with. Against United, I think he starts in the middle. I think the fact that he didn't start this game, for him to be benched next game would surprise me. I mean, the thing is, Grealish does start in the middle, win man of the match, but would Pep trust him against United away when the only time he's done that this season is at home to Forest, right? And I think he played really well in that game, and he still got benched, I think, the next game, or he didn't continue in that fashion. So, yeah, something to monitor and certainly consider, albeit in most cases, I wouldn't sell. And Gabriel's a really interesting one. And I said that if I were to sell one of the two, I would sell Foden. And I actually think he could be a hold for a little while at least. Firstly, let's discuss the quality of the double game week replacement. Well, I really like Villa, right, because of the things I discussed in solving your problems. Form, depth, Emery, talent, fixture runs. Even the fixture run's not even that great, but I think they're playing so well that I'm willing to offset like the difficulty of it to an extent. If anything, they make it so much more difficult for the opposition. So that's one thing. Outside of them, right, like where do I go? Okay, we'll come on to Arsenal. Like I've already got Guardiola. Would I want to double on City? Yes, maybe. But if they also are going to double on 36 with Southampton away, Bournemouth at home, still would prefer to have an attacking asset. If that's not Foden, maybe that's Savio. But that's something to consider. Maybe I want to lock myself into that. And then Palace, we've already got triple Palace, right? So where else can you go? And in terms of the single game week options for like a bench boost 33, outside of like West Ham, there aren't many good fixtures either. Okay. And then you could say, okay, what about moving to Saliba? What about moving to even like Miles Lewis-Skelly if Calafiori is injured for a while and he's got that left back spot nailed? Well, the thing about him is, I don't actually even know if Lewis-Skelly, I don't even think Lewis-Skelly is classified as a defender in the game. So maybe like someone like Jakob Kiwi or like, let's say like Tim was out for a while and they've just got White at right back. The thing is, without Gabriel, they're nowhere near as good of a defense. And because they've got so many games with the Champions League, especially if they progress, they could just get very fatigued and start to concede goals and play worse as a result. So I'm not even sure you'd want to go there. The other thing is, like, if you're going to go for Saliba, because he's the only one nailed expected minutes-wise, he's expensive as well. Maybe you could take the money out of Gabriel and move it up into the midfield and attack and improve there. So, with that in mind, I bring you to the next slide. So what if we shift strategy? For those of you who have YouTube in your pocket and cannot see the screen of the slide is titled Transfer Plan, Chip Strategy, Flexibility, and hence that's what it's all about. There is every chance that double game week 36 could be just as big as double game week 33, right? Let's just say the most probable outcome from a mathematical standpoint occur. Manchester City win, Aston Villa win, and we get a double of, the teams that do double will be Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Spurs, and Manchester City. Those are four very good teams, and all of a sudden, having those assets for that game week could be very, very, very helpful and provide you with a really high ceiling, especially if you're chasing or you like want to be aggressive or you simply think it's optimal. But with that in mind, there are two things which we could potentially do. Number one, we could actually shift the bench boost to 36, right, and start to optimize for that because there are single game week assets in 36 that you really like, and start to use transfers for that and also provide your squad with some more depth. And that's A. But B is probably the one that I like the most if we are to do something like this. You abandon bench boost 33 entirely and you just simply keep rolling. Use the transfers necessary to optimize your 11. And to be honest, by not bench boosting in 33, you probably can use transfers in a more optimal fashion for your 11. And maybe, let's say you would have scored this many points, right, with your slightly suboptimal starting 11, but bench boost. But because you're optimizing your 11 for 33 and you don't have a bench boost, as opposed to it going all the way down to here, it only goes to like here, right? And that little gain or that little loss can be not only accounted for in 36, but also surpassed, and you actually make a profit on it, which is the only reason you would do it in the first place, right? Because after blank game week 34, you're going to know who doubles, right? And let's just say there are upsets. Let's just say Nottingham Forest win, and to be honest, not the most unlikely scenario. And let's say a Palace win. All of a sudden, you're going to want Brentford assets, and you're going to want Nottingham Forest assets. And having transfers where like other people won't, and having a different type of squad structure, and being able to move Gabriel out so easily, as opposed to like having locked already the cash elsewhere, that could be really, really useful. So that is something to consider. And it's one of the reasons, amongst others, why I wouldn't be using transfers now. Let's get to 33. Let's see what the landscape's like. Realistically, if you wildcard in 30 or you wildcard in 31, for 32 at least you should be okay. If you're going to get Gordon, I understand, but outside of that, there aren't too many opportunities. So yeah, to keep rolling, keep rolling, keep rolling. You have the depth to account for these injuries most likely. The other thing about this is it opens up different routes in terms of the other chips. All of a sudden, right, like triple captain 33 becomes open. And maybe you look at Saka away to Ipswich, at home to Palace, think Arteta will play him 90, basically any game, as long as he's like even remotely able to do so. Saka's going to kill Ipswich, and then he'll take Palace to town as well. And all of a sudden, you're looking at 25 points times 3, 75. Maybe you want to triple captain him. Maybe you want to triple captain an Aston Villa asset like Rashford because he's on fire. He might be on penalties. There was a quote today, and we'll reflect on it later this week, about how Rashford is now competition for Ollie Watkins up top, and he can, of course, play off the left as well. So if he has got good minutes, if he's on penalties, two stylistically suitable fixtures in 33, maybe you want to go for really differential there. Maybe you just like to triple captain 36 and then just bench boost elsewhere. All of these things are open to yourself on the assumption that, like, especially on the assumption you keep rolling. That is what I would consider, and that is a slightly different transfer plans for this week, and naturally so, because after a wildcard, in many cases, you're probably looking to roll, especially with our squad compositions being so deep. And that is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to drop a like on the video. It would be much, much, much appreciated. Equally, subscribe if you have not already. And again, thank you very much for helping me reach 7,000 subscribers. I shall see you very soon. In fact, today, in about 14 hours or so, for everything you need to know. Until then, have a wonderful day and goodbye.